Hello and welcome to Lost in Sci-Fi and Fantasy. I'm your host Leo, and this week we are talking Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Now, I wasn't really planning on doing this game this week, but after a certain point, I decided, well, I want to buy Baldur's Gate, so I kind of need to make room on my PlayStation to fit Baldur's Gate, which was coming out. So I had about a week to loosen something on my PlayStation, and I decided Jedi Survivor's probably the best candidate for that currently on my console. So, uh, we're here now. uh, yeah, so I got the game shortly after it came out, I believe, and yeah, I enjoy it. It's good. I got it after the book, after I read the book, and I decided. Well, at the time, I was thinking about doing it kind of right then and there, but I didn't know how long it was going to take. Yada yada. Yeah, I wasn't so sure. And hell, even trying to get it played for this episode was a bit of a mess because I ended up having a lot more time wise left to play than I thought I did, to where it is currently almost 3 in the morning on Monday when this episode's supposed to come out. So I only have a few hours to get this episode recorded, then edited, and posted. So we'll see how that goes. um, yeah. So I'm gonna how am I gonna do this episode, and what kind of things am I gonna talk about? So the main things I kind of want to discuss is I'm going to split it up between non-spoilers and spoilers because there's a lot of things I kind of had to spoil to talk about mechanic-wise and story-wise that that we can so that we can also discuss where the game series might be going for the next one, because according to the creators, they have always envisioned this kind of as a trilogy, and they've begun development, at least partially, on the next game. At least getting some ideas down. They have some ideas already, and they're working towards a next game. And they intend for that next game to be fully on the next game engine and everything. So we'll see how long it takes and whatnot. But anyway, setting that aside, I also want to talk about how it connects to both the first game as well as the Battle Scars book, through references and story details, and kind of see where things lie. But with that, let us go ahead and kick off. So when we last left Cal within the video games, him and the crew had just invaded the base Inquisitorius, or what is it called? It's like the Fortress Inquisitorius. They had just invaded there, or infiltrated there, to get the holocron, and then they come to the collective decision to destroy it, and then it cuts to credits. That's where that game ends, and then you're kicked back to before the boss fight, so that you can clean up your mess around the worlds. Fun. In the book, we had left them after having had a very tense journey with an imperial person who is trying to defect. They had a very tense interaction. One of them, Marin, had a very passionate interaction, and in the end, they kind of split, with Grease having lost an arm, and Seer kind of blaming herself, Cal kind of blaming himself. Marin's just kind of there in that case. But there's some tension amongst the group, and we've learned that each of them has their own motivations and goals that they're trying to, complete, but they're coming to learn that maybe their goals aren't fully aligned with each other's. They're going similarly along a similar-ish path, but they're no longer super aligned. And that's where we left. When we joined back up with Cal at the beginning of Jedi Survivor, he is no longer part of the Mantis crew. He's actually the one in possession of the Mantis, but he has joined a kind of task force, like crew, that has been kind of working with Saw Gerrera. And we joined him on a mission for Saw Gerrera on Coruscant, where he is being he's been captured and is being taken to a senator. And we follow him through this little intro section till we meet up with the senator, who is being a bit of a dick, to put it lightly. But yeah, then while trying to fight this senator, one of the Inquisitors from the previous game, which one is she? I think she's the 9th sister? I think. She's the big one. The big one that I believe, cut off her arm and then flung her off of a tree. We fight her to the death. And this is where we learn that Cal has kind of gotten a little bit more of a bloodlust going on in this game, where he is willing to murder. Now, to be fair, they are an Inquisitor, and that's kind of part of the justification, but you can just kind of feel that Cal's kind of gone a little bit more to the extreme, a little bit. And this game is also willing to go to new places, where the previous game kind of was on the lighter side, I guess you could say. The last game had some dark moments, but it was still, for the most part, kind of on the light side. This one's kind of going to darker places, with deeper tones. But during this mission, while they're trying to get information from the senator, systematically, each one of Cal's crew dies, except for one. And there's a little bit of an issue here. So the one who doesn't die is Bode, who joins you for the rest of the game, and he's supposedly a newish recruit to this crew. Now, part of the issue is, I feel like some of the supplemental material should have been Cal with the new crew, so that we could develop more of an understanding and a feeling for this crew. I don't know. They might do a supplementary thing going in to fill in some of that time, because part of the issue with the Battle Scars book is it's kind of smack dab in the middle between the first game and the second game, which is a span of 5 years. So that's a long time in between for, that Cal could have been joining this new crew and getting to know them and building close friendships with them. And then, we see them get fucking murked at the beginning of the next game. That would have been maybe a little bit more substantial. But it still is kind of sad, because the game does do a decent job of making you feel for these characters before they get absolutely crushed. But yeah, so I believe the mantis, in a daring escape, uh, sustains some minor damage. So we decide to journey to Kobo, where Grease has set up shop, in order to try and get it repaired. But instead of a nice, soft, gentle landing, we crash horribly outside the town and have to hoof it inward. At least I think it's to do with Grease. I'm sorry, I will be honest that the beginning of the game's a little bit fuzzy for me because, one, it's a long section of the game, and also I played it like a few months ago. Yeah. Anyway, well, I do remember that we go to Kobo to try to get the ship repaired, crash it, and then we have to hoof it all the way to town, in which we encounter the Bedlam Raiders to introduce us to that faction and what's happening there. And pretty much from this point, we decide to kind of interfere with this planet's internal politics, because here the Bedlam Raiders, a group of, well, local thugs, are kind of causing trouble everywhere around here. And you need to you decide to help them by kind of investigating what's going on with the raiders and whatnot, and that you end up finding during this kind of journey, you find, while you're exploring the town, you find this underground cavern under Grease's bar, and you find a robot named Z. You get her patched up and taken back up to the surface, and you find out that she is a High Republic droid who was helping her master try and navigate I think it's called the Kobo Abyss, I think, which is this big, like, void vortex thing, black hole looking thing. Nebula, I don't know, that you can see in the sky at almost all times while you're on Kobo. But her master was trying to do that, and the last bit of information she has is in the forest array. So you journey out to the forest array to see what's going on there, fight Bedlam Raiders because they're also going there, I think, and there's also the Empire on Kobo. I can't remember which one you're fighting primarily as you're journeying through because they kind of interchange, and the Empire's overall role in this game is kind of drawn right back to where the main focus is kind of the Bedlam Raiders, save for in a few instances. But anywho, you journey to the forest array to see what's going on, to see what this thing that Z was here for was. And you go, and it's a guy. You find out it's a guy. This guy is a High Republic era Jedi who has literally been stuck in this Bacta tank for 200 years and has somehow survived. I guess the Bacta like slowed aging or something. Now, if I remember correctly, in the High Republic books, I've only read 2 of the High Republic era books. But if I remember correctly, Bacta in like tank form is a relatively new thing in the Light of the Jedi. But yeah, I don't know. Anyway, but you find this guy, and you let him out, and you start talking to him, and then you realize that, oh no, things aren't good. As it turns out, he has gone to the dark side. You have a small fight with him, he escapes, and now it becomes a bit of a race to get to Tanalorr, which is the planet on the other side of the abyss. So your whole thing is to get a compass. Well, turn on the arrays, get a compass, or at the very least, you're trying to stop him. And his name's Dagon. This Jedi who's not a Jedi anymore. But yeah, his name's Dagon. And you're either trying to stop him from doing it, or you're trying to beat him to it. It's kind of... the motivations get a little bit fuzzy, but pretty much as Cal learns more about Tanalorr, he realizes it's a good place to use as a safe haven from the Empire. And so that's kind of the goal he's working towards, is to, deal with Dagon and then get to Tanalorr and use it as a safe haven for him and his friends. But first, he needs some more information on the past and stuff. So they journey to talk to Cere. And Cere is on Jedha. And this is probably where one of the biggest twists of this game happens. And I won't spoil it right now. In fact, from here on, I'm probably going to have to go very, very light on story stuff. I'll just kind of give you the basic outline of what happens, and I'll go into more juicy details later. But from here, you go to visit Cere. She sends you off to... well, it takes you a while to get there. You get lost. You meet back up with Merrin, who it turns out has been hanging out with Cere and her group. Cere's group is the Hidden Path, who their whole goal is to kind of recollect Jedi artifacts and provide people a safe haven through safe houses and whatnot. And yeah, so this is kind of hinted at in Battle Scars, because it's revealed that Cere's kind of goal is she wants to have the Jedi legacy, their history and their teachings preserved through artifacts and tomes and whatnot, to be able to pass on the knowledge eventually. That was kind of her goal, was to kind of in the end, as long as I have done this, the knowledge will live on, kind of thing. But so we work our way to Cere, talk to her, and then we go back to Koboh. Well, from that point we learn that we have to go to either Koboh or the Shattered Moon above Koboh. You can do it in either order. You do those, because I believe at that point you are like trying to activate the arrays and find the compasses. But you do that, then you go back to Koboh, I think. Do some stuff there, go back to Jedha, then go back to Koboh. When you go back to Jedha, you go there to talk to Cere and co, and you try to do something, but an emergency comes up, and you and Merrin head out to try to deal with that emergency. Then you come back, then you go back to Koboh, and it's pretty much a lot of back and forth to only like a handful of planets, I'll be honest, which is slightly disappointing, but also a bit understandable. But after a lot of back and forth, um, eventually things happen. I think from here on, I'm pretty much gonna have to go to spoilers because a lot of stuff does happen. Before I go fully into spoilers, I will say I do highly recommend this game. Its gameplay and whatnot is a lot lighter. Sorry, not lighter. It's technically more complex, but at the same time, eventually you'll settle in to the combat and it becomes fairly simple. You know, if that makes any sense. Like you're given a bunch of different stances. Like you get a gun stance, you get a big old fuck off cleaver, you get dual wielding, single blade, double blade. But eventually, once you kind of pick your style and you settle into it, you're probably not going to change a whole lot. In fact, you're probably going to spec up to where you either max out only one of the stances or your two main ones. Personally, I ended up using it's called the crossguard one. Now, that was technically partially laziness on my part. When I got the crossguard, I just kept it. I didn't change it afterwards, so it just was the one I had. So the two I mained were dual wielding and the crossguard. And then I fully upgraded the crossguard because I actually really enjoyed the crossguard. It's a big fuck off longsword. You just swing it around. It's very fun. The addition of the blaster is nice, but it doesn't add a whole lot. You get a zip line or a grapple hook thing that is fun, though sometimes it can be a little bit finicky. The way you learn new abilities in this game is very similar to the last game, except for instead of Master Jaro to Paul, it's Seer. So like you get little glimpses of the space between the book and this game. Tiny little glimpses. And afterwards you learn like a move, which is mostly movement based. I mean, partially you learn you'll learn like, force lift / push down to move some like rocks and stuff. But otherwise you learn like a little extra dash when you're doing a double jump. So you can double jump dash. And then you get an ability from Marin to dash through certain things. It's very offhanded too. She's like, here, have this, and then you're able to do that now. Cool. Anyway. Yeah, so I do highly recommend it. It's a good sequel, though it could have used a little bit more connective tissue between, at least between the book and it, to give you a little bit of a better picture of the world that you're in now. But yeah, it's definitely worth the money. I did hear that it did have a very rough launch on like PC and stuff. But the console version, for me at least, was stable on launch, or at least around-ish launch. And the only major-ish issue I kind of came across was like a bug here or there that I'll admit I partially caused, because I noticed I was like, ooh, I can kind of like glitch my way through this area. And then I was stuck because I couldn't glitch my way out of the area. Whoops. And then there's just some minor visual glitches, which tends to happen a lot with at least these games. and modern games in general, which is really sad that a lot of modern games have visual bugs like that so bad. Mostly it would be like things popping in when they shouldn't be, or taking an awkward amount of time to load a rock in a scene, or you know, there's a tense moment where Cal's talking to someone, but in the background, like certain panels on a door behind him are just like flickering on like brighter and dimmer. It's silly, but yeah. But yeah, again, highly recommend. But now let's kind of start digging a bit into spoilers. And if you want non-spoiler version of the ending, Cal gets to Tanlore, Cal wins, game ends. But into the spoilery bits. So, the biggest twist, at least personally, is that Jaro to Paul... Nope. Is that Master Endo Cordova, the man who pretty much guided you through the previous game, is alive. Now, to be fair, it just kind of... We all just kind of assumed he was dead. I sure as hell assumed that he had died, like, before the Jedi Purge. That was kind of my assumption, is that he died on his adventure or something. But no, he's alive. And left BD behind, I guess. That shocked the hell out of me to learn that he was still alive. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And he's kind of the one that helps us, you know... He's more the person that's actually there helping us, like, oh, you know, you need this, you need that, go here, go there, kind of thing. Kind of like he did in the previous game, but now he's alive. But yeah. So we learn this at the end of the first Jedi section, and then that's also when we get the blaster and whatnot. And then we go around. Like I said, it's a lot of back and forth, and there's, I think, less planets in this game, or technically maybe the same amount of planets in this game as the last game, but it feels like less regardless. The amount of planets feels like less because you're going back and forth between like the same planet so many times. It's lessened, the strain is lessened a bit by the addition of fast travel, thank goodness, but it is still a bit of a ball ache to be like, okay, we go in here, now back to Kobo, now go back there, now back to Kobo. It just, it hurt ever so slightly. But anyway, so the big things, when we are journeying through, let me think, it is, yeah, when we're journeying through the Shattered Moon base, I think. Yes, the Shattered Moon base. We're being taunted by, I believe his name's Revis, who is he's the leader of the Bedlam Raiders. How? I'm not sure. Why? I'm not sure. Because supposedly, this man is also over 200 years old. He was around during the High Republic era. He fought Dagan and was beaten by Dagan. And then owed Dagan a life debt from that point on. And it has been fiercely loyal to him since then. But when Dagan was subsequently betrayed by the Jedi Order, they both, fought the Jedi Order, and it took many people to bring him down, and he was eventually just arrested. Supposedly, he's literally just been in a Republic jail cell this entire fucking time. Like, all the way up through the third movie, he's just been hanging out in a cell. And he gets released because of the fall of the Jedi Order, and then just takes that chance as a time to skedaddle. He then builds up the Bedlam Raiders, I guess, from scratch. The Bedlam Raiders also get lucky while on Kobo and find a downed Lucrehulk and a bunch of, deactivated droids on it. So they commandeer the droids and use them to, rain some terror down on the people of Kobo. That's kind of the whole backstory with him. But as you're going through the Shattered Moon base, you're building up. He's taunting you for some reason and giving you parts of this backstory as you go along. And then you finally confront him. Now, we've learned that he has like a healing factor thing. Like, he gets his arm cut off, but he's just able to, like, pick it up and put it back on. But you fight him, and he yields. You try to get him on your side because you've now done the thing that Dagan did, and he's like, no, that's not quite how this works. And then he's like, please give me my warrior's death. So he goes to attack you, and Cal kills him. Then kind of begins the, I guess, final ascent at that point. You are not Dagan. He was able to tell you before you killed him that Dagan is after the compass, and the compass is in the observatory. So now you have to go to the observatory. And the journey to the observatory is a little bit annoying because it's mostly through an Imperial garrison. So it's a bit tedious to get to, and it feels very kind of like a non sequitur. Like, oh, you're wrapping up the past kind of storyline because the Bedlam Raiders control a bunch of droids, like separatist droids, and the one of the guys is from the High Republic, way in the past, and he's too stuck in the past, kind of thing. So you hunt him down, but you have to deal with the Empire first. But it turns out that they're also doing like this raid on the observatory. But you work your way up. You fight a bunch of droids along the way, some of the Empire, but not a whole lot, because it turns out, like, as you're getting closer, things are obviously getting kind of more hairy, as it were. But you finally confront him, and you kill him. You work with Bode to beat him up, and then you kill him. And you think, okay, we're done. We're not done, because we still have to get to Tanalorr, of course. So you get the compass from the now slain Dagan, and you need to take it to Master Cordova to see if he can repair it. You get it to him, and luckily, you can. Now, during the second trip to Jeddah, when you're trying to help deal with the kind of emergency for Seer, Cal and Marin have grown a bit closer, so much so that they share a nice tender moment and a kiss. Then, during this moment, while Master Cordova is working on fixing the compass, Cal points out to Marin that, Like, while the Jedi got a lot of things right, they didn't get everything right. Because he wants, he now knows part of what he wants, and he wants to be with her. They share a nice tender kiss. It fades to black, and then it's the next morning, and you're still in the same place, which is kind of awkward. But you go check on Master T'Pol's progress, and he's fixed it. It works. Good. Then, shock and horror, Bode betrays the group. Now, during the course of the game, he has kind of grown a bit close to the group. He's done a lot of stuff, but it turns out he is a traitor. He is an Imperial spy, technically. So you chase down Bode. He actually shoots Master Cordova and kills him. So I will say that that's a little bit of a pet peeve of mine. Reviving a character literally just to kill them. And again, technically you can say, well, Master Cordova wasn't stated as being dead in the last game, but I'm willing to say it was heavily implied he was dead in the last game. But I digress there. But yeah, like, for example, in, what is it called? Armada, I think, by Ernest Cline. Now, that book is full of crappy tropes through and through. It was my first inkling that maybe Ernest Cline is a terrible writer. Because, I got sucked into the nostalgia bait that was Ready Player One, the book. The movie I wasn't a fan of. I got sucked into the nostalgia bait that was that book. But when I went over to Armada, because like, ooh, I'm super excited for this. It's nothing but like 100% tropes. And one of the tropes is that his dad died ages ago. But when he goes to the secret moon base, his dad is not dead. But then when there's an attack on said moon base, his dad dies. So it's super annoying. Technically, also, I really don't like the opposite of that. Or is it the opposite? The multiple death fake out, which, for Star Wars, the Aftermath trilogy, what's his name? Snap Wexley? I think that's his name. His mom has like 3 death fake outs almost back to back, and I hate it. I hated that so much. But yeah, anyway. So you chase him down, and then it turns out not only is he a spy, but he is also a former Jedi. You try to fight him, but you fail miserably and get chucked off of a cliff, and he leaves. Then for a bit, you play as Seer as the Jedi hideout is attacked. You go through this big, long... Well, it's actually a nice, relatively short level. I got a bit stuck on a bit because I'm a goober, and I didn't understand how you were supposed to get up the slope. Anyhow, you proceed through destroying like the invading attack and whatnot, and then you get to you get the communication codes. You give it to BD1 and send him back to the Mantis, and then you face Darth Vader. Darth Vader has personally led this attack on this site, specifically to come after Seer. You fight him, and you get so close to beating him, but he kills you, and Seer does die. And at this moment, or it might be later on, but Cal comes across her as she's dying, or potentially later. The scene shifts slightly, during it that could imply that time actually was different. I don't know. Anywho, Cal's there, and he takes the bodies of both Seer and Master Cordova, and they, I guess, load them up on the Mantis, which is a bit... But, yeah. Then you go after Bode. Now, he's left the tracker active, because supposedly he had a bit of a tracker on his ship for some reason, but it might have been something hinted at earlier in the game, but I can't fully remember. But you use that bounty puck locator thing, and you track him, and you track him back to an ISB base. You go through the ISB base, and you find Bode and his daughter. And he explains to you. He asks, so you were actually a Jedi. How'd you survive? And he explains, well, the Council sent some of the Jedi to be with the Republic Intelligence Agency, which eventually became the Imperial, the ISB. Surveillance Bureau, I think it is. And he used those skills that he gained there to disappear. And he met a woman, fell in love, had a daughter, and then at some point, he was told, he got a message, don't come home. It was his wife warning him that Inquisitors were coming after him, and he had to disappear. And he came to the conclusion that he had one option to survive. And that was to go to the ISB, strike up a deal, that he would hide him, that the ISB would hide him, as long as he was useful to this specific ISB agent. But it turns out that Cal was being used by Bode, in this specific instance of coming to the ISB base, to, try and deal with the ISB base and the guy that was playing handler. Because when Cal confronts the leader, the commanding officer, you learned that the ISB was planning an attack on Jeddah. It was months in the making, and it was still months out from actually happening. But since Vader led the attack, it is implied that Bode literally just brought Cal here to deal with him. And the next bit gets a bit confusing. This is before you actually confront Bode. Now Cal kind of starts kind of tapping into his dark sidiness. He drops the guy, knocks him onto the table, and he is knocked out. Now, I wasn't sure if he was dead or not, but regardless, Cal steals his clothes and then uses it as a disguise to wander around to get to Bode's abode. Anywho, then when you confront him about you being a decoy, he uses the Force to push you away, and then Scarpers. You chase after him, and here you properly start tapping into the dark side. And you start attacking, you work your way through the base, chasing after him, but he got away. But you know where he's going. He has the compass, he's going to Tanalorr. You work your way through, and Marin comes to try to help rescue you, and you could theoretically get through this encounter without using the dark side, but you end up using the dark side. In fact, the time stop power, where you would like freeze people in place and attack them, that has become like permanently a dark side ability, and you use it because they start throwing larger amounts of strong enemies at you from this point on. But yeah, so you work through that. The only like actual like in scene use of the dark side is when the ISB commander comes after you and you pretty much almost kill him, because it turns out that he's the one that sent Bode in to infiltrate the group, which ended up getting the group killed in a sense, and also led to the death of Master Cordova and eventually Seer. So he's putting all the blame on the ISB guy and almost kills him. But Merrin talks him down, calms him down, and then they move on. But that ability is permanently there. You can tap into it whenever you want. Then you have to, well, you learn from a message that has been kind of playing on repeat since the last fight with Dagon, just like a small part of it. For some reason, in that message is literally still a way to get back to Tanalorr. Because I don't know why she sent this message. Because the message, I believe, is supposed to be intended for Dagon to pretty much say, hey, you've lost yourself. It's too late. But hey, if you want to go back to Tanalorr, I guess, this is how you could, in theory, do it. And that is to just align the arrays. Now, I had actually gotten lucky and had discovered the fast travel point to the array room super early. I was like, weird. This room's odd, and I keep hitting the button, but it doesn't stop the things. It's because it's literally an endgame room. Whoops. But, so I teleport there, and I'm get through the onslaught of Purge troopers and then Dark troopers and fucking sentry droids, or what are they called? Probe droids, that's it. Just go through the onslaught of them. Then I move on, go up, align the thing, and then we go to Tanalorr. And we fight Bode. But, so while Merrin is all for killing Bode, in fact, she's trying to pretty much get it through to Cal that, hey, we're probably going to have to kill him. We're probably going to have to kill him. And Cal's like, yes, but while he's an asshole, his daughter will end up without parents. She's at about the age where we both lost our families. So, it's hard. It's extreme struggle, and I want to potentially save her from having to deal with that. So Merrin concedes and says, fine, we'll give him a chance to stop, to give it up for her. So you go, you talk to his daughter, who leads you in. Now, we ask her to lead us to her dad, but it's literally just a single hallway, so it doesn't need a whole lot of leading. But we go in, and he pretty much just says, no, and continuously puts his daughter in harm's way because he's angry. You fight him, defeat him, kill him. Cal has a bit of a remorseful thing, and during the fight you have to once again tap into the dark side, as a prompt, which is embrace the darkness. Then you move on, and the implications are kind of left up in the air as to whether or not Cal's going to continue to tap into the dark side or not. But there's an entire scene when they're doing the funeral for all three fallen Jedi in this game. And, well, okay, all three of the main ones, except for Dagon. Dagon just fucking dead on Kobo. But yeah, Bode, Seer, and Cordova. So you hold the funeral, and it's Cal pretty much standing there. There's a symbolic thing with the daughter. She puts her stuffed animal toy thing on top of her dad's thing to, kind of symbolically let go of both of her parents, because the doll was given to her by her mom, while still holding on to some of the memories of her mom by still singing the song that she sang to her. Anyway, Cal and them all go up to kind of look and pay respects to the burning bodies, but Cal stays there extra long. He just stands there for hours, like into the next day. And finally he says, like, he says his goodbyes to Seer and kind of confides in her spirit, I guess, that he doesn't know if he's ready for the next step, what needs to be done next, because he almost lost himself, by tapping into the dark side frequently, it would seem. Marin's reassurances are that, Seer, she was able to confront and overcome her dark side. You will too. And Cal, while standing there, is given kind of the message from Seer to guide her through the darkness, presumably the child, to help her get through this almost certain dark time that is about to come for her. But yeah, that's where the game ends. Then there is a post-credit scene that leads very smoothly into the post-game. After the credits roll, there's a scene where they're trying to discuss what to do next. That is, they're going to try to set up something on Tanalorr, a little safe haven, something to do. But first they have to, see if the compass works. And Marin gives him the compass, or Grease gives him the compass? One of them gives him the compass and says, "It belongs with you." And he says, "No, it belongs with us." And then he goes over to the kid and is like, "You think we're good to go?" And she's like, "Yeah." Then you're in the post game, baby. But yeah, so that's that. The game is a lot of fun. There's some annoying things, like some of the traversal in this game feels like it goes on forever. Like when I was talking about how it feels like a bit of a non sequitur to go through that Imperial base, it's because you literally spend like an hour going up and through into that Imperial base and then out before you're kind of back going after the High Republic Jedi that's on the run. Yeah. And it's just so long. I was expecting to be able to play a little bit on Saturday and then finish it off easily on Sunday. That did not happen. I was able to play a bit on Saturday, and I was expecting to be fairly close to the end game, but no, I spent an additional 6 to 7 hours playing the game just today. Before I literally pretty much just finished playing it before coming here. Now, I'm not saying that, too much game, bad kind of thing. It's just, you tend to lose track of what the hell you're doing when you're doing something almost completely unrelated to your main objective. Anyway, with that said, again, I do highly recommend it. The gameplay is good. The story's good. It could use a little bit more connection to previous materials, but where are we going in the future? I don't know. My best guess is that we're going to do another time jump into the future to where they have set up something on Tanalorr. like a little bit more permanent, and they're trying to keep it good, keep it safe, and maybe because there's a small hint of the Nile. Now, I haven't read a whole lot of High Republic stuff, so I don't know if the Nile have been completely wiped out or not, or if they're still technically a threat that's just hanging out or not. I don't know. I need to read more High Republic books. But if they are still a potential threat, that could be something that maybe even if it's like an old Nile remnant that's just been kind of festering for the past 200 years, like a multi-generational Nile remnant, comes and attacks them. I don't know. But I do feel like it might have something to do with Tanalorr or something. I don't know. I'm excited to find out what they decide to do. Or if they decide to do. Some things that they will probably tackle are Cal either accepting the fact that he now uses partial dark side powers, or him just fighting to repress it. I don't know. We'll see. I'm excited to find out, though. Anyway, with that, though, let's get into the challenge update. So, I have been a little bit of a bad boy. I haven't made a whole lot of progress. It's a Kane Chronicles book. And while at the end of last episode, when I was talking about it, I was optimistic, I hadn't at that time actually gotten to a Sadie Kane chapter. And once I did, every page, every paragraph, every action she takes in those 2 chapters feels like I'm being spat in the face every single time, to where I close it and I set it aside, knowing that I should have probably just pushed through, but no. It's almost literal agony to read. I have so far only gotten to the end of that Sadie section, because in that section, she throws such a hissy fit. She makes such illogical, stupid choices that I can't tell if they're intentionally annoying or not. I mean, it's technically referenced, like, lampshading an issue does not solve the issue, you know? Yeah, it's like when they lampshade doing a terrible action. For example, they're like, hey, look, I'm pointing out the fact that I'm doing this thing. It's funny, right? No, it's not. You're just pointing it out. You're making it more obvious and 10 times more annoying. So in this case, it's Sadie's birthday tomorrow. And, the stress of what's going on is just getting to be a little bit too much. So, she decides that, 4 days is too much of a deadline. Golly gee. Let's reduce that down to 3. Because it's my birthday. And I had plans. Now, presumably, according to the story, they have been planning this trip, her trip to London, for a little while now. Her grandma and grandpa had messaged her saying, hey, come join us and your friends and have birthday in London. And she is like, yeah. So they've been planning it for a while. But just as it's coming up, they get a message from, what's his name? Horace. They get a message from Horace saying, hey, you guys have 5 days You need to get this scroll, and you need to awaken Ra. That's the kind of the MacGuffin slash the the main plot of this book. They need to awaken Ra in 5 days to try and at least slow down the snake. Because at that point, because the deadline is because at that specific day, it will be the weakest, like the most balanced day. So it's the best time to awaken Ra because like magic's weak and whatnot. And flip side, it's also the best chance that the snake has to escape. So that's why they have to do it by then. But to do that, they have to collect 3 scrolls that represent the 3 aspects of Ra. His morning, noon, and night aspects before he's reborn the next day. You have to get all 3, join them together to be able to actually understand the scroll, so on and so forth. But Sadie is so set on doing this that she just says no. Because Carter's like, okay, we'll get ready and we'll leave in an hour. And she's like, no. I'm taking the day off and I'm going to London. And I'm just like, why? Why do you have to do this? Like, literally, I get it. I get it, kind of. But at the same time, it's one of my biggest pet peeves is just not understanding the weight of a situation. To get so lost on something else that you just don't see the literal thing in front of you. And again, it's mentioned. She does talk about it. She's like, oh, you know, I'm bound to not feel guilty about this and whatnot. But literally, it's a 4-day deadline. You could literally do this afterwards. Like immediately afterwards. You just do this, and then afterwards, have a belated birthday party with your friends. But this is literally the world we're talking about. Now, supposedly, though, they have been kind of going nonstop since the previous book. At the end of the last book, they were off to kind of get their first students. And we actually meet their first students in the beginning of this. It's Jazz and Walt. Now, Jazz, partially because of her actions, is now stuck in a fucking coma. Because she impulsively went to grab the fucking scroll in a heavily booby-trapped museum, expecting the scroll not to be booby-trapped. And to be fair, technically it wasn't. The scroll just got excited, supposedly, but it did end up triggering all of the booby traps in the fucking room. And ended up putting that girl into a coma. And then afterwards, she decides to throw a fucking hissy fit and run off to do her birthday. In which she then gets captured by, I guess, a snake? I don't know. I haven't continued on from that point. But yeah, so that's part of my gripes and why I'm having trouble. I'm just going to have to muscle down and push through. Like I said, I was optimistic last week because they had decided to tone down her accent a bit in the writing. But they didn't even fully do that. They toned it down a little bit on her side. Not a whole lot, just a little bit. But yeah, I'm just going to have to grit my teeth, go through. The Carter bits aren't terrible. They're not great, but they're not terrible. I can push through those easily enough. But the Sadie bits, I'm just going to have to grit and bear it and push through. Because her bits are so bad. I don't know why Rick Riordan decided to write her as the world's most annoying character. I don't know why. Now, supposedly, though, this Sadie Kane was his first foray into writing like a woman character. And it feels like it. It's not good. It's not a good attempt because he just made her super whiny and annoying. And it's a bad look. I'll say that. Anywho, but yeah, my plans going forward, because with this delay, I am once again technically 2 weeks behind. My current plan is Monday is fairly open, so all of Monday I'm going to spend pushing through this book. I'll just force my way through it. And hopefully by the end of Monday, I'll be able to start the next book. If I'm not, then it'll have to be Tuesday. Tuesday is a little bit more restricting because I do have to get a new Lego Pirates of the Caribbean episode out. Sorry that there was no commentary on that episode. Literally, my commentary got corrupted the minute I tried to save it. A thing that I'm hoping doesn't happen to this episode I'm recording right now. Because there's a small chance that might happen. It just sometimes happens. Like I don't know why. Anyway. But yeah, so I on Tuesday I need to do another Pirates episode. I also need to see about streaming sometime. But if I'm able to finish the Kane Chronicles book on Monday, today, I'll then try to move into the first Magnus Chase book immediately after, at least get a little bit into it. And then I'll see about on Tuesday, regardless, starting the Magnus Chase book and pushing through. And hopefully I'll be able to finish it Wednesday. Wednesday should be another fairly open day for me. So I'll just sit and read throughout the entirety of it. Get it done. Then the following thing is Thursday. Thursday I should hopefully be able to start the second Magnus Chase book. I'm just really hoping that Magnus Chase is good. It's my fingers are crossed. Hopefully it's good. Anyway, with that said though, I will be doing that and hopefully it works. But anyway, thank you guys so much for listening. If you guys enjoyed this, feel free to give it a like, comment. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you guys like this, feel free to give it a like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. Follow it on other platforms where you might get your podcasts. Share it with your friends and whatnot. I don't know what next week's going to be. Could be anything. It probably either a movie or a video game, though. If I push on it, I might be able to get Crisis Core finished, maybe? And we'll do like a second game in a row. Otherwise, it'll be a movie of some sort. Ooh, or if I push and I get the first season of Doctor Who, like the reboot 2005 Doctor Who, I might do an episode on that. Maybe. We'll see. Anyway, thank you guys so much for listening. I'll talk to you guys later. Goodbye.